Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli, and he said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, I did not call. Go back and lie down. So he went and lay down. Again, the Lord called Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I didn't call. Stop waking me up." That's a little interjection. "Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. A third time the Lord called Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I am about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears about it tingle. At that time, I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family from beginning to end. For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, and he failed to restrain them. Therefore I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering." Samuel lay down until morning and then opened the doors of the house of the Lord. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision, but Eli called him and said, "Samuel, my son." Samuel answered, "Here I am." "What was it he said to you?" Eli asked. "Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you be ever so severely if you hide from me anything he told you." So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, "He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes." The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, and there he revealed himself to Samuel through his word. So, one thing I love about this story and what it teaches about a childlike faith is that a childlike faith sees the real possibility of ministering as like a first grader. Right? Not because that's how cool Samuel was, but it says Samuel ministered. It says it twice in the chapter before, once in the beginning of this chapter. Not because that's how cool Samuel was or even how cool first graders are, but because that's how awesome a childlike faith is. For us, it's just a question of whether or not we have eyes to see it. Pastor Lindsay talked a lot last week about the importance of relearning how to see with a childlike faith. And as she said, it's not naive, right? It's that it trusts God, trusts God's loving presence that much more. So this beginning to Samuel's story demonstrates a handful of really crucial points about passion, vocation, calling. And point one is that passion or vocation, calling, is planted within us from our earliest stages. If we read the first 3 chapters of 1 Samuel, we'd see over and over again how much it makes the point that, one, Samuel is just a kid. Just a kid. It even talks about how Hannah would bring him little robes. She would make little robes and bring them to him to the temple because he's little. Everything's little. Samuel, all the adjectives are about how he's a little, he's boy, he's young. The whole first 3 chapters. And secondly, like how chapter 3 opens, it says that he ministered before the Lord under Eli, which of course, in a way, makes sense. Passion is one of the 3 crucial components to a childlike faith. So it makes sense that it would exist in kids already. I mean, they already have preferences, right? They have preferences, they have dislikes, and they will let you know them, right? Like Simon loves to be held upside down, which is probably not good with his like blood counts and stuff. He probably gets a massive headache, but he loves it either way for some reason. He loves to be upside down, does not really care to be thrown in the air. He's just like, I don't really know what to do with it. He doesn't cry. He's not happy. He's just like, it's like weird. He's like a little bit like stone-faced, just like getting thrown up, getting caught. He doesn't really care. So if God knows us, the God who knows us, who knit us together in our mother's wombs, also knit our preferences, why wouldn't kids also have a God-given sense of purpose, of passion, of vocation? The second thing this story demonstrates is that each person's passion is unique. Samuel's passion, which made him a great priest and prophet for Israel, was obviously not the same passion that was in Eli's sons. We don't know what their passion was, but we can learn that being in the wrong position with the wrong power for the passions that they actually did have led to disaster, which leads us to our third point from the story about passion. It can be draining, even harmful, to live another's passion or what you think yours should be, even though deep down you know it isn't. Sort of like, just off the cuff here, if you ever worked as a state-recognized carny at a local amusement park in Collinsville, it's draining, I hear. Not that I did that. Just kidding, I did. It was awesome. It was a fun job. I still have dreams about it sometimes. Maybe it was my passion. I don't know. But because really we can learn as much about our nature and our passion and our calling and what we're meant to do by running into our limits as by experiencing our potentials. In the case of Eli's sons, them being in the wrong position and not having the passion for what they were doing caused real harm. They didn't have the right passion for the position they held, so they held it irreverently. They were using their power for their own gain, and in chapters 1 and 2, if you read it, they were robbing what was rightfully dedicated to God, and so it brought punishment on them. It brought punishment on their dad for being complicit, and it brought great suffering to all of Israel. And aside from bringing sort of all of this, the fourth thing is that to properly use your passion, then, is to bring wholeness to yourself and those around you. Because Samuel was who Samuel was, with his God-given sense of vocation, of calling, even as a young boy ministering to Israel, Israel was liberated from the oppression of Eli's sons and what they were causing, how they were turning the temple and the sacrifices into a mafia-style shakedown. And instead, they were given a priest and a prophet who lived into his God-given passion. It's an energizing thing to live into your passion. It's a life-giving endeavor for yourself and for others. It's like kindness like that, right? It sort of splashes over into other people's lives. Even at the most basic level, have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you start talking about something they're really passionate about, and they light up, so animated, and it's just it's like a little vulnerable to see that side of somebody. And they're so light up, and they're just talking and talking, and they talk faster, and they could just talk for an hour. And in a way, it's almost like I could just listen for an hour, because it's just so engaging to hear somebody talk about things that they're passionate about. It's fascinating, and it's inviting, and it's charming all at once. There's something electric about just in hearing and seeing people engage their passions, and it makes you want to do the same. To summarize and say it all another way, passion is God-given to you early on with your particular life experiences and relationships, serving as a conduit through which God's healing and grace can be poured out. So in just a minute, I'd like for all of us to be able to start the process maybe of identifying and clarifying our sense of passion. But there's this quote from Frederick Buechner. That's fun to say. Great cat name if you're looking for one. Says that passion or vocation is the place God calls you to, or the place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And that's what I want to spend some time on this morning, beginning to find that intersection where we are called by God, where it's not just listing what we love and like to do or what makes us come alive. It's not just values-driven work or activism either. It's that place where those two meet. It's important that it starts with identifying what brings us deep joy. The thing that we're wired and designed to do, uniquely in the way that only we could do. And then it overlaps and intersects with the world's deep needs, because the world's deep needs, they're endless. And I am very finite. I can be a warm body, but if I don't have the God-given passion for it, the project will fizzle out or I'll burn out. There's this Hasidic tale that speaks so clearly and succinctly to this point. It says, Rabbi Zusia, when he was an old man, said, "In the coming world, they will not ask me, 'Why were you not Moses?' They will ask me, 'Why were you not Zusia?'" We find our callings by being who we are, by dwelling in the world as Zusia, as who we are, and not straining to be Moses. So we need to identify our deep gladness, and then identify the world's deep needs that breaks God's heart and breaks our own, and then to find where those two intersect. And to do that, we likely need to reflect on our own stories. Like we said in the beginning, this is a series on spiritual formation, and there is nothing that has more power in our past or present that shapes us like our stories. So when we reflect on our stories, there's this childlike faith invitation to trust the God that has instilled in us a passion and will meet us in the reflection of our own stories, to see our stories as field guides on the playground of passion. Our stories know how to navigate this playground, and when we reflect on them, show our affinity towards the monkey bars, but not really the swing set. Makes me feel nauseous. And I thought I should love the twisty slide, but it's just okay. Because the truth is that biographies are theology. We have to treat our stories as sacred spaces where we can continue to encounter the divine. We have to prayerfully approach something as big and wonderful as our passion, even if we're pretty sure we know what it is. And that's a journey of wonder and discovery, to uncover and to live into your God-given passion. I don't know who did this. I was going to the cafe, that's what they call it, the cafeteria at the hospital at Cardinal Glennon. And there are these little posters that say, "When I grow up, I want to be blank." And then kids in the hospital filled in with what they want to be when they grow up. And so I have a couple examples of some that I would like to see, like to show. This first, I want to be a princess when I grow up. And the other one, I want to be a makeup artist when I grow up. I want to be a food critic when I grow up. It makes me think of Ratatouille. I want to be retired and live by the ocean. Come on now. We're going to church, Jasmine. I want to be a nurse when I grow up. I want to be a lottery winner with a cat cafe. I want to be Secretary General of the United Nations. They're different, some of them. One of them I didn't take a picture of. I saw this morning. It said, I want to be a real housewife of St. Louis. And I said, same. But it's wonderful. There's something that's happening. The retired one's kind of funny, but the live by the ocean, there's this sense of connecting with nature, with beauty, with the ocean that might be in that little kid. Or the one who wants to be a nurse, there's something about helping people because they've seen the impact of what a nurse can do and how incredible nurses are for the healing of not just the body, but of the heart and mind and soul. Oh, come on now. Owning a cat cafe. How wonderful is that? Yeah. Frederick Buechner, that's going to be the cat running around. Secretary General of the United Nations. Part of what I love about their stark honesty, like the cat cafe, but I like how they had the plan of how to do it too. They're like, I'm not going to work for it. I'm going to get this lottery ticket, I'm going to get that money, and I'm going to get that cafe. And then it's all downhill till the end, right? The thing about it, what I love it, is that kids recognize that passions don't have to have utility to be valued. That's not a metric of success. In Genesis 2, it's a retelling of the creation story, and it says how God created some trees just because they're pretty. And then there's some other trees that have good food. A cat cafe doesn't have quite the same social impact as the United Nations Secretary General might, or that a nurse would. But that doesn't mean it's any less important. We should all hope and pray that that little kid hits the Mega Millions and opens that cafe just as much as we hope that other kid becomes a nurse or the other one the Secretary General. Because to live into our passions is to bring wholeness into a world in our own uniquely God-given way. When I was in seminary, my friend Austin and I were chatting about something. I forget what about, but I will never forget what he said. Do we know who Yo-Yo Ma is? World-class cellist, literal prodigy, has been performing since he was 4.5 years old. Austin said, the world is better because Yo-Yo Ma has a cello. A childlike faith leads us to trust that I might not see it. I might not even understand exactly how, but I know that the world is better because Yo-Yo Ma has a cello. So, with the rest of our time, a few minutes of wonder, discovery, our passions, what is your cello? You should all have a Venn diagram on your chair or screen or by your chair. If you haven't been in a second grade classroom in a while, they're the two circles and they have unique things about them, but then they overlap, right? There's that sweet spot in the middle of things that are shared by both. And so you have to fill out the outer portions before you can really meditate and figure out the middle. And even so we need to begin with the deep gladness, what makes us come alive. So above the left circle, with a pen or crayon, just write, my deep gladness. And then just as I'm talking, just go ahead and start to fill in. 1-word answers, 2-word answers, however, What makes you come alive? What's the thing that you feel like you can't not do? What gives you a deep sense of gladness, of joy? And fill it up as much as you want. Go outside the lines. I'm not great at it. God is. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, just even stream of conscious. Just write words as they come to you. Think about them later if that's helpful. Or if you're the meditative type, the reflective type, take this whole thing home. Do it later. That's fine. Take a day, take a week, take a month, take the rest of your life to think about these things. And then on the right portion, at the top above it, right, the world's deep needs. And then fill in that side with the things that come to your mind. And again, the world's needs are endless. So you won't make an exhaustive list. But write the things that tug on your heart. Maybe the things even that you've seen in your own life. Again, things from your stories and experiences. That could help to narrow some of that. If that's too restrictive, just disregard. Last week, Pastor Lindsay talked about asking God to break our hearts for what breaks his, and to stay close to the cracks. This is exactly that. And then if you have a sense of what your passion, your vocation, your calling is, then right there in the middle, the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep need meet, then right there in the middle is where you'd write that, where the two circles overlap. And if you don't, at this point, at this year, at this millennia, that's okay. It's a journey. It's about playing on the playground. It's not about rushing to finish it, get it done, check it off the list. You can take it home, leave it on your nightstand, put it next to your coffee maker. So in the morning, you got that nice cup of pick-me-up, and you can sit and think and pray. And even if it's just a simple prayer, like Samuel's, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. But as you do, remember that whatever your passion is, it's worthy. It's worth it. It's worth figuring out. It's worth pursuing. It's worth making time for. That place where your deep gladness and the world's deep need intersect is exactly for you. You already belong right there. It's there for you. God gave you the passion because it's for you. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's, and that's good news. Don't be Moses. Competition and comparison is totally the wrong game. And then, if you start to figure it out, as you start to figure out, if you would share it, if you want to share it, that would be great. You could share it with myself, with Pastor Dave, with Pastor Lindsay. We would love that. We'd be thrilled to be invited into the process, even if it's just, hey, I want to just talk to somebody and tell a story and bounce some ideas around. We were even just to clarify some thoughts, to have somebody ask us questions about the stories we're telling, or even just to celebrate the journey of figuring this out, of uncovering our passions, of meeting God in that sacred space. And know that using your passion is God's delight. Your own unique mixture of wiring, gifts, and meeting the world's needs all in full swing. Because it's God who put that spark in your life. It's God who wired you, who knit you together in your mother's womb. I know that I take so much delight in watching Simon play and figure out things as simple as clapping, which he does with one closed fist. He does like this. Doesn't make much noise, but he's getting it. Or his just deep love of books. The boy could just read a book, even the same book, over and over again. Then he tries to eat it, and then you got to take it away. And then he cries because you took it away. And he just loves books. So I don't know, maybe he'll be a writer one day. I don't know, I'm not going to try to put that on him, though. He can figure it out. That's sort of the joy of it, right? So I can't imagine how much more delight will grow watching him live into that passion that God gave him. For him to grow into exactly who God made him to be. And I think that's how God is with us. I don't think that we can overemphasize that Jesus revealed God to be Abba, Father, especially in a series on childlike faith. I mean, come on. That's how we relate to God. God is like a parent, a father, a mother, a guardian who loves us, who loves watching us grow and become who we are. God delights in watching us wonder and discover and uncover our passion. What joy it must bring God to watch us embrace a childlike faith and recapture and embody the passion that we've been entrusted with. Let's pray. Abba, as Zephaniah said, you, the Lord our God, is with us, the mighty warrior who heals. You take great delight in us. In your love, you will not turn us away, but will rejoice over us with singing. Help us in our search to uncover and reclaim our passion. Help us to embody a childlike faith. Help us to find the sources of deep gladness. Help us to name the deep needs of the world. May we be brave and childlike. May we be bold and abundantly kind. Speak, Lord, for your servants are listening. Amen.
Thank you, Grant. A couple announcements before we go. As Grant mentioned, the series wrap-up is next week. It's going to be the room set up as usual. So I mentioned at the very beginning, for those of you here, if you've got a few minutes to help us get these tables torn down when we're done, that would be helpful so that we can reset up the whole room, tables down, and if you, again, can spend a few minutes, chair set up. So we'll go back to normal to wrap up the series, an exciting sort of wrap-up. Kids will join us for music and worship on that side of things, and we've got conversation with a couple of families who've been a part of New Song and participated in leadership in our children's ministry and have impact sort of in their own lives from the experience of childlike faith, the journey here. So we encourage you to join us Sunday as we wrap up the series, hearing from some families from within our own family of New Song. Also that night, next Sunday night, is Parents' Night Out. That's from 6 to 9 p.m. And so, yeah, those of you parents who are looking forward to that, that's next Sunday night. In terms of building updates, we're still moving forward relative to, we're waiting on an appraisal that's been ordered. And so they've given us sort of a rough timeline when that could happen, so we're waiting for that day to come to continue to move towards the next step, just so that you know where things are along those lines. Following next Sunday, beginning in August, I'm starting a new series, and the intent of that is, it's intentional. It's no secret that we live in a time, and have been for some time, accented by the oncoming of the pandemic, in a time of division and dissension, disagreement, where discussion seems to be off the table so many times, particularly when it comes to partisan politics, and there's little room for understanding how to transcend the disagreement, to understand how to have conversations that allow us to discuss. The scriptures invite, call out the church to be one, to be the light of the world, to be the light on the hill. And so what we want to do is walk through a series teaching us how do we transcend the division to be able to move towards the oneness that Jesus prays for us for in John 17, that he prays that we would be one. That there's a third way that Jesus intended for us to move in the world around us. That doesn't mean we put aside all of our identities or our beliefs, our practices. It essentially means, how do we live as Christ followers? And where there's disagreement, learn to enter into that with the, not just negotiated, all right, I'll take sort of, whether it's marriage or whether it's a conversation about religion or politics, it's not just sort of, okay, I'll negotiate, we'll land somewhere in a neutral middle. It's understanding practices that can move us towards oneness, that can transcend the division. That'll start August, the first Sunday in August, and so I invite you to be praying for that as we journey, especially as we journey as a country into the next seasons of primary elections, that we're learning practices of the kingdom, of how to be in the relationships that matter to us when things are difficult, enabling us to participate in the transcending the division, so that there is the move towards unity, the move towards opportunity for the kingdom to flourish. So that begins in August. Again, so if you've got a few minutes to stick around, take down tables, set up chairs, we'd appreciate that. If you came prepared to worship with us in giving, we have joy boxes around the walls online. Grace and peace. We'll see you Sunday.